this episode, Holly and I discuss the 3 rules of wealth creation. If you implement these 3 rules, it will completely change the trajectory of your life and the generations to come. She's Holly, and she helps people find financial freedom.
He's Nate. He makes sense out of money. This is Dollars and Nonsense. If you follow the herd, you will be slaughtered.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you. And Holly and I are here excited to post this podcast. It's going to be based on themes you've probably heard before if you've been around for a long time. As always, our goal is to simplify the proper perspectives that if you grab onto them, wealth creation will become like a default in your life, if that makes sense, because you're fine-tuned and you're on point. And so the main theme is that these rules are going to create wealth no matter what. Like, you can't stop the wealth train. If you accomplish these 3 things, you're going to become wealthy, which I believe, and we're going to dive into. The desire to become wealthy shouldn't be, I just want to be rich, I want to have a whole bunch of money. Your desire to create wealth should be all about your ability to produce value to the world. So it's like becoming a valuable person. That will help you become wealthy. And if you get focused on these 3 rules, that's going to take place. So our goal in life, in our pursuit of creating wealth, should be, what can I do in this world to produce a ton of value to somebody in the world? And that is the start of all wealth creation. For those of you listening to this, you may already see that just simply that one idea is actually kind of contra to what everyone else is used to doing, which is mainly store money up in Wall Street programs, like retirement programs, mutual funds, and things of that nature, that produce very little value to anybody except for the Wall Street firms that own the mutual funds. Like they're producing value to you in exchange for, like, diversification and all sorts of things, letting the little man, get into the stock market more easily. And so they're the ones out there producing value, and you are producing very little value to anybody in the world by doing that. But there are other ways in the financial world, in the business, entrepreneurship, investing world, where you can do things that produce value to people and will result in large amounts of wealth creation. And these 3 rules, I think, will get you there very quickly and can easily serve as like a North Star for your financial decisions.
It's about a desire. You have to have a desire to want to bring something to the world. That we all are born for a purpose and a reason, and we have value to add to this world, and we have to take ownership of that value. We cannot just let life fly by us and be like, oh, I never did anything with my life. Every person's life has value and is important. We're all called to do something. And part of that is building wealth in whatever way you're called to do that.
If you have stewarded your ability to produce value well, you will result with wealth. That's like a natural law of God. And that's also what you'll see just in a capitalist society, no matter what. If you tune your radio signal and figure out what can I do to produce a lot of value, you'll be wealthy. I mean, it's a natural law that exists in this world, that the people who produce the most value. Now, you can get lucky. You can build wealth without producing any value. You can win the lottery. Yeah, exactly right. I mean, you can get lucky. You can win a lot. You're gambling at a casino or something. I mean, you can get lucky by buying a property. You could have no idea what you're doing and just buy a piece of property, and through some forces outside your control or understanding, it increases in value throughout any intention of yours. So there are ways to do it. Without any sort of intentionality. But there's always a mix of that, by the way, in all of our lives. There's always a little bit of luck thrown in. There's a little bit of, forces that you don't control that will aid you. But what we find is if you follow these 3 rules with intentionality, you will create a lot of success. So let's go ahead and dive in, Holly. Our first rule for wealth creation, number 1, is to take ownership of your financial future. Do not abdicate your responsibility to become a wealth creator by just passing the buck off to some money manager somewhere else. This is one of the reasons why we really don't like retirement programs. And the conventional is why we call ourselves Dollars and Nonsense. If you follow the herd, you'll be slaughtered. And the reality is, I understand that retirement programs and mutual funds have a value to the world, that you'll probably make some money in there, I'm sure. But what we're trying to say is just the fact that you separate your money from yourself and pass it to somebody else, giving the responsibility to create wealth to somebody else who doesn't care about you, doesn't know you, is honestly just in it for themselves for the most part. What you've done is you've gotten rid of your responsibility that should be on your shoulders to go get good at things and create wealth, and you've passed all that wealth potential to somebody else, and you may earn a rate of return, but it's going to muzzle your entrepreneurial spirit that I think really lives in all of us if we unlock it, to where you can create true generational wealth by building an investing empire, which we're going to talk about in rule number 2 and 3. Like, that's why I get concerned, especially for those of you who know that we're in infinite banking, Holly, where people are like, well, is IBC policies a better use of money than retirement programs? Like, is the rate of return inside of my policy going to be bigger than the rate of return of mutual funds and a 401k? And I don't even like having that discussion, because what I'm saying is, first off, it's an impossible thing to discuss, but I don't even think it's the thing to be discussing. Like, infinite banking puts you on one path, and retirement programs put you on a different path. You're choosing your path. Which path do you want to be on? Infinite banking is what will unlock entrepreneurial potential. The whole point of building money and capital and policies is to deploy it, to take ownership of it, to no longer abdicate your responsibility for your financial future. And so it's essentially, there's two paths that lay in front of you, and we're saying, which one do you want? I'm not here talking about the rate of return of a policy versus the rate of return of Wall Street mutual funds and retirement programs. I don't do those things, not because of any rate of return per se. It's because I don't want that path. I believe that the path that is empowered by capital that you own and deploy is going to produce far greater wealth than you could ever dream of, just by stuffing all of your money in retirement programs and getting rid of your responsibility to manage it, and no ownership on your end at all of your financial future, and you're just hoping things work out because somebody else is going to do it. That violates rule number 1. You'll never be independently truly wealthy until you take ownership of your financial future.
And I think, Nate, on rule number 1, the reason when Nate says he doesn't want to discuss it, you're asking the wrong questions, because not only are you abdicating your money, you're also giving control of your money to somebody else, and you're losing that money for a period of time where you can't access it without penalty. And even though it's your money, you can't use it or access it without penalty. So right there, you are completely saying, my hands are gone. I'm not doing anything with that money, whether it be for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You're letting somebody else control it really for the majority of your lifetime. Yeah. And so you're asking the wrong questions. The question should be, do you want to be a wealth builder and a wealth creator? And if you do, that's why we want to implement the IBC program, the infinite banking concept, because that is your system. That is what allows you to move forward in creating wealth and getting out of the rat race, or saying, I don't want to control my money anymore. I'm just going to give it to somebody else. The easiest thing to do is to give it to somebody else and think that they're going to do better with your money than you're going to do. In all honesty, my dad said it all the time. The only person that does better with your money is you. Nobody else is going to do better, because they don't care about your money the way you care about it. The way you want to see it invested and grow and earn. They have no buy-in.
Trust is a great thing. The economy is built on trust. Human relationships are built on trust. Investing is a lot of trust. But the idea is we trust weird people. Like, I want to put money with people that I do trust. But the problem is, these people, like, how can you possibly trust people you've never met anyway, first off? But secondly, you can't put trust at the highest level of, in other words, people trust people and lose money all the time. Like, that's normally how you lose money, is when you don't take ownership. In other words, instead of, you still abdicate the responsibility for your success. This happens all the time in real estate syndications and different things, which I'm not opposed to doing. I'm just merely saying a lot of times the people that you're about to send money to, you should know enough about the deals that you're putting money into and not just throw money because of you're hoping for a rate of return. That's that same mentality of abdicating your responsibility. You're not taking ownership. So then it might work and it might not, and you have no idea if it's likely to work or not based on your knowledge set. So first off, most people who don't actually take ownership and just want to pass money away, they're the ones who lose lots of money, by the way. They're the ones who a lot of times lose money. Or they're just very passive and they don't succeed much. That's the retirement program idea. You could lose money, you can make money, but you're not going to get. Like a retirement program never made someone independently wealthy by itself. Your ability to produce value to the world is what creates wealth. So sometimes you can be, like in other words, retirement programs, if you're going to be making a lot of money and building a lot of capital, you could throw it all into retirement programs, you probably end up kind of wealthy. What we're saying though is the retirement program wasn't what got you the wealth. It was your ability to make a whole bunch of money. How? By producing a ton of value to the world somehow, whether it was in business or whether you're just a highly paid, W-2 employee or something like that. You're producing a lot of value. That's what's building the wealth. The retirement program is just you saying, I don't want to deal with it. Which what we're saying is, okay, that will put you on a track with an end result. That is okay. So number one, take ownership. Stop just simply passively putting money, trusting random people. Simply, you need to take ownership of it. Make wealth creation a priority. Not because you want to get rich, per se, not because you're just greedy capitalist, but because you want to be able to produce value to the world. So that's number one. Number two is very similar though, Holly. Number two is find a niche. So number one is take ownership of your financial future. The best way to do that is to find a niche. Get good at something in the financial world. Get good at something. Get good, choose something that you want to become an A player at. What do you want to become an A player at? Robert Kiyosaki talks about this all the time, by the way, becoming an A player. There is no such thing as a bad investment. There's just bad investors. There's no such thing as a bad investment. There's only bad investors. If you say, is the stock market a good investment? No. There's either good investors or bad investors in the stock market. Yes and no at the same time. The same thing goes for real estate. Is real estate a good place or a bad place for money? No. There are people making money in oil and gas, real estate, stocks, gold, Bitcoin. The ones who make the money are the A players. If you don't have ownership, you've abdicated your responsibility, you're just trusting people. You didn't want to spend time and energy to get good at something, then you're never going to find a niche to get good at, in which case you're never going to build true generational wealth. One more thing to note on this, Holly, is that most of the time, whenever you find a niche, if you guys can see where this is going, you become an entrepreneur. What this means is you're not just passively setting money aside. It's like I'm going to build a real estate business or a stock, investing business. You're going to essentially transform your mentality from being a passive investment seeking a little bit of rates of return to running a business. That's really what a niche is in the financial world, is some sort of business, which is why I also mentioned to those of you listening who already own a business, by the way, that is your niche. That's like your default niche is your business. There is no other investment that will generate a higher rate of return than investing in your business and growing your existing business. That's number one. So you should max out the potential and capacity for your business, which is already your niche. You're already good at it. It's already successful. You already know what you're doing. You should work on growing that, because that will build true wealth, as opposed to just, once again, abdicating your responsibility, separating money, sending it somewhere else, hoping for a little rate of return. The best rate of returns are in your business, at least until you hit critical mass, and then you can start looking elsewhere.
And Nate, you have to ask, and we've said this before, like, what are things you're passionate about? What are things you enjoy? Because this takes time, energy, and effort to become an A player in your niche. You can't just sit back and expect somebody else to do it for you. But you have to ask yourself those questions. You also have to understand we are all good at something, but we have to stop and ask ourselves what we're good at and what are we passionate about. And you have to be passionate about it if you're going to spend time, energy, and effort. That's all part of building your wealth, is educating yourself, taking the time, the energy, the effort, all that also costs money most of the time.
Yeah.
Your time is valuable. There is a dollar amount associated with your time. So you have to be willing to take the time and make the time to create that wealth, both as business owners and not being stagnant and just doing the same thing, and as entrepreneurs that you will become, like Nate and I said. So many people get into a entrepreneurship by accident, really. They got into the niche they liked, they became the A player, and they realized, oh, I'm good at this, and that became their business, really, of
right.
what they do with their life.
If you're not a business owner and you're an employee or a W-2 employee, the same thing kind of works. No matter what we talk about, the greatest ability to build wealth is going to be to increase the value you can produce to the world so that you can actually earn more money based on what you're actively involved in. So you could create a niche where you're actively involved in essentially your investment world. That's your business. You're running your investments. And you could transition. That's of course where a lot of the wealth is made, by the way, is when people are, where their full-time job is running and managing their investment businesses. So that's where real wealth is made. But what I'm saying is you can also do similar things even if you're a physician, even if you are, an employee, an engineer, whatever it is you are, you need to continually be able to find ways to produce higher amounts of value, to grow the active income that you can then leverage to start building investment businesses. That would be my idea. And in that same vein, we've said this many times before, everyone should be good at something in the investment or the business world, but you might as well get good at running the banking business that's going to finance those other businesses. That's going to need to be a feature of your empire that you're trying to create when you're building wealth. If you follow these 3 rules, you take ownership, you're finding niche, we'll go to rule number 3 here in a minute. You're going to start building wealth, and that wealth the investments and ventures you're going to start need to be financed, they need to be funded. You might as well become an A player in the banking business that's going to finance those investments and the businesses that you're going to start or that you already have. And by the way, the profits from just simply the banking business, when you follow the infinite banking concept, the profits you can make inside of the banking world they can be large enough for you to be wealthy just by itself a lot of the times, let alone what you decide to do with it. And so it's a perfect marriage. That's why one more thing, and then we'll move to rule number 3, but one more thing to note, this is one of the reasons why I mention policies really shouldn't be compared to quote-unquote retirement programs or things like that.
Yes.
Because of the track of life it puts you on. It puts you on a different track with different perspectives, different goals, different philosophies. And so you will, if you actively fund your banking business with lots of capital at a high level, you will, of course, accumulate a lot of cash value. That cash value should be deployed in various ways to increase the overall value that you bring to the world through investing and business expansion, starting new businesses, all these things. They need capital, and you should become good at the banking business that's going to fund it. You'll be guaranteed to make a lot of money.
Are you tired of feeling like everyone has their hand in your pocket? At Living Wealth, we believe in challenging the status quo. After all, most of those conventional tools only seem to make someone else rich. Let us show you how to take back control by banking on yourself. Visit livingwealth.com/escape-the-bank. You'll receive instant access to what we call the beginner's course. This free, in-depth, easy-to-follow course teaches people how to create and profit from infinite banking. We not only discuss the philosophy and principles behind infinite banking, but also offer real-life examples to demonstrate how it works. Even folks experienced with infinite banking often tell us they learned a ton too. So, it's worthwhile regardless of your experience level. Stop letting banks and Wall Street dictate your financial future. Again, that's livingwealth.com/escape-the-bank to gain access to the free course today. Now back to Nate and Holly.
Rule number 3, and we are big proponents of this, and you're going to hear us say it a lot. Never retire. Never retire, because retirement means you really are of no value. You're adding no value to society. So that idea of retirement is, in our viewpoint, I'm going to say, Nate, I agree, my dad would have said it, is that it is the biggest destroyer of our wealth. It is what stops us producing wealth. It's what stops us. My dad always said, would you ever want to stop paying yourself? Right? And that's what he was using in regards to premium, right?
Yeah,
but like,
yeah.
would you ever want to stop paying yourself? You should always be of value to this world. You always are of value. That retirement ideology tells us we're not of value anymore. We're not contributing. We're not adding anything to this world. Yeah. And I think it's the mental attitude. There are so many people that retired because they wanted to do what they love. What we're telling you is, if you find your passion and what you love, you don't ever have to retire, because you'll be doing it later on in life. Throughout your entire life, you'll be investing in that and doing it, because that is your wealth creation.
Yeah, if you take ownership of your financial future, you'll start having fun with your own money. Yeah. You'll find a niche that you really love being, and suddenly the idea of retirement, these kind of all go together. The idea of retirement won't even be your primary function. So rule number 3 of creating wealth is never retire, because retirement breeds destruction of wealth. Like the whole system is built to accumulate money and then consume the money. And so that's the opposite of wealth creation. That's literally just destroying the wealth. And not only that, just this simple idea of, I cringe, and I know some people are listening to this who are already clients of mine, and they've talked to me about this before. So it's like, I'm not, no judgment, no offense to anybody, but I do kind of cringe whenever I hear, well, I'm thinking about retiring in 5 years, or I'm going to retire in 10 years, and all I'm trying to say is that if you are successful with the focus of creating wealth, you will also be able to produce enough passive income to not actively work. My issue is with everyone's main focus with saving and investing money, the conventional default method is just to retire one day. So like, I can't wait to retire. If I use an example, Holly, okay, let's say I'm talking to like a physician, like he's a medical doctor, and he's practicing medicine, and he just can't wait to retire. And so the implication of, okay, I can't wait to retire, and this would work for any career. The implication is that there are things about my job. What do you dislike about your job? Like, why would you want to leave? Number one. So ask yourself this question. Why would I want to leave? Why am I looking forward to retirement? And everyone has some sort of reason why. So they're going to say, okay, I want to retire because I don't like the hours. I want to have more flexibility with my time. I want to be a good grandfather. I'm tired of missing out on my kids' baseball games, or the stress of it's killing me. The politics around is killing me. The insurance, the fear of litigation is keeping me up at night. I don't know. You would list off all the things that you don't like about your situation, and those are the things that are pointing you to say, I kind of want to retire, and I want to get out. What I'm here to say to you, if you follow the number 1 and number 2, what I would tell you is that you should take ownership of your life. In other words, what if there are ways for you to continue producing value to the world as a physician, which you went through pain and misery, that just to get your medical license, you went through, and the same thing goes for a lot of people who start a business. You went through all this, and you just want to kind of throw it down the drain at some point and leave it. Well, maybe you don't like it. Maybe you made a mistake when you got in to the career. But the reality is, I bet you, if you get very focused, you can create the life that you want, even if it's in like a profession, like a physician or a doctor, where you can take ownership of your job, take ownership of your life, and start to, instead of saying I want to retire one day, say I want to create value in a way that I enjoy the work and the effort. So normally when someone says I want to retire, it's because there's a whole bunch of things that their job is keeping them from doing, or that they don't like about their job that they want to escape. And what I'm saying, life's too short to be stuck doing something that you don't like to begin with. But secondly, your goal in retirement, or the idea of retirement itself, breeds certain perspectives. Becoming a wealth creator and building wealth, becoming truly wealthy, builds different perspectives. So your goals will be different. The goal of retirement is just to build up enough money to live, for the rest of your life. The goal of wealth creation is to create way more money than you're ever going to need. Like way more. It's a much higher goal. If you take ownership of your financial future and you find a niche, you become valuable to the world. Retirement is all about stopping your ability to produce value, your production of value. That's the main mentality. Anytime you use the word retirement, we're going to assume what you mean is the definition of retirement, which is I'm going to stop working, I want to live off passive income, I don't want to do anything, I want to play golf, and I want to do whatever I want every day. Now, some people say, well, that's not my idea of retirement. Well, stop using the word then. Do something different. Stop using the word, because that's what the word means. That's what we have to, all as a society, have discerned. That's what retirement means. And if you're brutally honest with yourself, you will figure out if that's what you're promising yourself, if that's what your goal is or not. Is the goal, I just want to escape the stress of life and just live golden years stress-free, That's a lie. It's a deception. It's not even true. Although it can be true if you create wealth, but not if your main goal is retirement.
My dad used to say he was retired because when you retire, you get to do what you love, which he loved to work and help people create and build wealth, right? That was his niche. Well, if you want to say you're going to retire, then in regards to retirement, it should be, I am going to do what I love. That is that niche. And becoming an entrepreneur and taking ownership. That's the only time, if you want to use the word retirement, which should never exist in our realm of possibility. It should be, what am I going to do that I love, that I'm passionate about, that I enjoy? And if you find that, that's why rule number 2, they all go together.
Yeah.
They
exactly.
all go together because they flow. And without rule number 3, you can't do rule number 3 and only do rule number 1 and 2.
If retirement is your ultimate goal, you will likely not do a very good job doing 1 and 2. Yeah. So if you do number 1, you take ownership, you find a niche, you probably won't retire. That's the natural flow, and that's what is needed if you want to produce true generational, lasting, big, true wealth. The idea of retirement truly is relatively selfish at its core. There's no judgment here, no offense, but that's the idea, though, is I worked all this time, I just want to reap the fruits of my labor and don't do anything. There's a parable that Jesus told, by the way, parable of the barns and storing up the grain and all this stuff that honestly seems very, very poignantly pointed towards the idea of stopping to produce value, stopping doing anything in the world, just resting on your laurels. Jesus says your life will be taken from you unexpectedly, and then who's going to get all this? And what was the point? There's a lot of truth in that, which is mainly wealth. The creation of wealth comes from your ability to produce value. That should be your number one goal. If you take ownership, you find a niche, you'll be a value creator in some way, and thus the natural offshoot of that's going to become wealthy. But when you're creating value, you feel good. When you know you're creating value, you feel good. You don't want to stop that. There's not going to be at age 65, you're like, you know what? I don't like producing value to anybody. It's fun to produce value. So you have to know what you do to produce value. If you're stuck in a situation where you feel like you're very overlooked and you're not enjoying it, it's very stressful, and life's too short to stay there. Just take ownership. Be like, okay, build your life. Find an opportunity that allows you to produce value in a way that you don't hate all the mundane things around it, all the mundane parts of the job. Or, as Rabbi Lappin says, just learn to enjoy the mundane things. Change your mentality. Learn to enjoy it. I actually was talking to an individual who's in my kid's class, and we were at the zoo, and he's the grandfather of one of the kids in my kid's class, and they're at the zoo field trip, and he was the CEO of a publicly traded company, and he was one of the founders. He was the CEO, ran it for a long time, and they just sold it a couple years ago, and they kept him on for a little while, and they said that he would still be the CEO and still run it, but then when they started to micromanage things, of course, that's whenever he's like, you know what, I'm not going to head out. But as he brought up, it's been very hard for him to go from being an extremely high value producer in the world to producing very little or almost no value now. The words he told me is I loved it. I knew what I was worth. I knew the value I could create. I was running this big company. I was doing a great job, and I was having a blast doing it. And I was able to produce high amounts of value. As soon as I left because it was no longer fun for me because I wasn't really running it, and there was other people overlooking me. It actually was a public company that became private, and by a private equity firm, and then they were installing their own management system, which he didn't believe in. So he's like, I had to leave, but now I had to create some stress in my life because I missed the high octane and the energy and all of this. And so he's just a living testament. If we are good at producing value, we would like to continue forever producing value. So if you take ownership, you find a niche, and you get retirement out of your mind, your only mentality is going to be to produce value. That's the only thing that remains. And that will be how you create wealth. And you will enjoy it the whole time. And you won't want to leave. And life will be better. So if you're doing something you hate, I don't know what to tell you. But, the recommendation is to leave or learn to love it. You have kind of left with two options: change your mentality or leave, and do something different. And so anyway, but I'm sure he's happy that he can go take his grandkids to the zoo and stuff. So I mean, I'm sure there is benefits to retiring. I know what everyone's trying to think about, and of course, what I'm saying is he's extremely wealthy now. He can retire if he wants. That was never his intention, though. Like, he did not build the company and run it as a CEO because he wanted wealth. Period. Wanted retirement, period. He was enjoying it. Now, whenever something came in, it got bought. I mean, he's 9-figure net worth. He can do whatever he wants now. Of course, he's built the wealth. He probably spends all of his time managing the wealth, but even then he still misses the high octane, high energy. It just struck me that the words he used was, I knew my value, and I knew what I was worth, and I was extremely valuable to this big company. And when that was gone, I missed it dreadfully. I terribly missed it. I think a lot of us will. You retire, you die. That's how. There's so many retired folks who get health problems and die. And so anyway, fundamentally, Holly, I know we've gone long enough. Take ownership. Rule number 1: don't abdicate your responsibility for financial. In your financial future, don't abdicate your responsibility to create wealth. Find a niche to get good at something. If you're in business, congratulations, you've already got a niche. It's your business. Nurture that thing. Grow that thing. It's going to be your biggest wealth producer. If you don't have a business, unlock your entrepreneurial spirit. Get out of retirement programs. Get the money back in your hands and go create with it. Create value to the world. Find a niche. Get good at something. Become an A player. And lastly, as you're producing value, get retirement out of your mentality. Get wealth creation and value creation as the number one goal, and let retirement be an offshoot of that if, for whatever reason, you need to down the line. Once again, the best way to get the news out about this show and about IBC in general and about our movement is to rate, review the show wherever you're consuming it. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Leave us a comment. Like us rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're consuming it. It would mean the world to us. But once again, yes, this has been Dollars and Nonsense. If you follow the herd, you will be slaughtered.
For free transcripts and resources, please visit livingwealth.com/E187.
Listener, one last thing before you go. Start your journey towards financial security and wealth today. Visit livingwealth.com/escape the bank. Upon completing this course, you'll have all the information that you'll need to see if infinite banking is right for you. Again, go to livingwealth.com/escape the bank.